Okay, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, I should say. So welcome to the buildingSMART 2025 Annual General Meeting. My name is Eric Bajaus. I'm the Chair of buildingSMART Australasia. Before we start, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. So buildingSMART Australasia acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands on which we work and live. We recognise their continuing connection to land, sea and water, and we acknowledge and celebrate the inherent strengths of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and communities, and we're committed to a positive future as we move forward together on a journey of reconciliation. So I'd like to declare the meeting open, the AGM open, and I'd like to acknowledge the current board, and I think we have quorum. I think all the board are on, although some of them have come in as attendees and not presenters, but that's fine. I think myself and Jim are doing all the talking. So the current board, myself as the chair, Holger de Groot as the vice chair, Jim Plume as our treasurer and secretary, Sandra Lang as a director, Julie Jupp as a director, Mark Fairburn as a director, Lee Gregory, Aaron Traylon and John Merchant as our current board. And I'd also like to acknowledge, Lee Franks as our administrator, does a lot of our administration work, who's done a great job throughout the year. And also Nicole DiCicchio, who we appointed as an event manager this year. I don't know if Nicole's on the call, but I'd like to also acknowledge the work Nicole's done throughout the year in managing our events. And also Scott Beasley, who now is appointed as our working group coordinator. So we'll talk a little bit later, but Scott's starting to organise more working groups within Australia and New Zealand, and start setting up some dedicated sessions focused on particular areas or domains. So the agenda for the AGM, opening of the meeting, I don't think we have any apologies. We'll confirm the minutes from the previous AGM from last year. We'll do a chairperson's report where we'll give an overview of the year, talk about the financials and where we are with that, and then we'll hand over to Lee to nominate the new board for 2026 and a vote of thanks to the outgoing board, and then we'll close off. We'll see how we go with time. If we've got some time, you're welcome to put questions. If anybody wants to raise any questions, just use the Q&A tab. If we don't get to them through the meeting today, we can respond to those. So just to confirm the minutes from last year, just to get through some of the official stuff, there's someone from the board just want to confirm the minutes from last year. They were issued with the notice of meeting, and if someone could second those. So I think, is that you, Mark? So Mark's confirming them. Someone to second the meeting?
I can second them.
Okay, and Aaron just to second that. So we confirm the minutes from the last AGM. So presentation of the annual report. So I might hand over to Jim as our treasurer. I think we've had quite a very, we have had a very positive year from a financial perspective. So I'll hand over to Jim. Jim, if you want to unmute yourself, hopefully you can unmute yourself and just give us an overview of the finances.
Yeah, thanks. There's a slide here which sort of summarises the essentials. So the income for this year went up a little bit against 2024, and that's as a consequence of both exchange and income from the new members. So our net profit is 58,000. Is slightly down, because some of these figures are affected by the fact that our financial year is in the is July to June, and of course events like the major event, the exchange event, is in the middle of the year, and so there's always this confusion about income from the event, which tends to come in afterward, before the change of the financial year, and many of the bills come in the new financial year. So those figures are a little bit misleading in that sense, because they're just really a function of when the exchange conference is, not as anything else. We also, new members also affects it, because we tend to have new members coming in late in the year, as in just before the AGM or around this time of the year, and so we don't necessarily get their VAT income reflected effectively. Our equity did increase by 16%, so that's a good sign. It means that we're progressing well. I don't think I need to say anything else, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think overall it's from a cash flow and financial perspective, we're in a good shape, and we'll use that as a not-for-profit. We'll use that what we make to invest into next year. So I guess part of the new board coming together early in the year is to do a bit of a business plan for next year and how we use the funds that we've got to keep driving forward. Chairperson's report. So it's worth just doing a summary of what's happened throughout the year. I know this year we haven't done our quarterly updates, but we might look to resume those next year and do a quarterly update. So just to give everybody an overview of some of the things that have happened this year. Some congratulations. So in terms of international appointments, and actually this is a sign that Australia, we're not a large chapter in comparison to some of the chapters around the world, but we do participate and contribute quite a bit at the international level. So myself getting onto the international board as a director, Jim Plume, so congratulations to Jim, who's just been appointed recently into the Standards Committee executive, and I think they've had their first meeting just in the last few weeks. Holger, who participates as part of the PCERT committee, so providing input into the training and the training content there. And also acknowledging Scott Beasley, who's part of the construction domain and spends a lot of time and a lot of his time participating in that. So we do have some good representation from Australia and New Zealand into the international side of things. In terms of some of the advocacy work we've done over the year, mainly in New South Wales. So for those of you who may have attended, we had an event last week together with Infrastructure New South Wales. So Infrastructure New South Wales just released their New South Wales Infrastructure Digitalisation and Data Policy. And there was consultation with members of buildingSMART and other industry groups. And it does talk about interoperability as a key theme throughout that document. At the event last week, there was a lot of discussion around open BIM and open standards. So it's great that we are having that impact in a lot of the government requirements, not only within New South Wales, but with other government agencies, particularly with TMR as well, and down in Victoria, and they've all participated in our events. So we're having that impact in terms of making sure that open standards are adopted at the government level, particularly. Yeah, so the event last week, which was held in collaboration with SIDBIM and UTS and Women in BIM, was a very successful event. We had over 200 registrations. We pretty much almost filled the lecture theatre, which was around 200. And we had a lot of senior government representatives there sitting on the panel, together with ourselves and others. So we got to interview them, and it's very good feedback from that event, actually. There was also another event this week held at Western Sydney University where there was a framework that was released together with the government as well. It was called Leveraging Digital Technologies to Boost Productivity in the Construction Sector. So buildingSMART participated in that. We were interviewed as part of that, and that was just released this week, and have also released a website. They're also working closely with Infrastructure New South Wales. At Shushi from INSW was actually there, and he sat on a panel. So it's good to see these government departments, particularly New South Wales, all starting to talk to each other and actively engaging with buildingSMART to set those policies going forward. Across the year, we've also been engaging with a lot of other industry groups. So we've done presentations, particularly to the Asset Management Council, and we're talking to them about closer collaboration between the Asset Management Council and ourselves, Consult Australia as well. I've just met with the new representative from Standards Australia, so we've been talking about more collaboration with Standards Australia as well at a local level. NatSpec, ABAB, we still sit on the executive of the Australasian BIM Advisory Board, and started to have a bit more interaction with Engineers Australia as well. So as much as we can, we're trying to interact with the other industry groups as well. So we try to get collaboration and consistency between all the groups that are out there. We've also still got our MOU with Women in BIM, so we work closely with Women in BIM on our events and in other ways. And I've actually got a meeting this week with GS1 to reaffirm an MOU that we started a few years back. Both GS1 and Women in BIM both have MOUs at the international level as well. So we want to start doing a little bit more with GS1. So I'm actually meeting with them tomorrow to talk about that going forward. Some other BSI updates just from the international side of things, and Jim or others, feel free to contribute on this. I've just put down the ones that I could remember. So we had the new international board that was voted in back in June 2025. That's when I got onto the board. So we had 3 new members onto the international board. The new standards committee, which I mentioned earlier, that got voted in November. IFC 4.3. So that was back in 2024, where that became a standard. There's work still going on with IFC 4.4 and tunnel. So there's been a bit of a stall on that, but now that's sort of coming back, and we're trying to get that complete. And Jim's heavily involved in that group with the tunnel 4.4. So trying to get that finalised. So that's in the final stages of getting approved or going towards ISO for approval. IFC 5 that went out to a vote in the middle of the year, I think it was, and that's now been approved to be put together as a final project plan. So a final project plan is being prepared for that. So it can now go forward as an official project to start looking at the next generation of IFC, being IFC 5. Whether it will remain named as IFC 5, that's being discussed as well. It might be discussed. It might be rebadged or renamed something else, because it pretty much is almost a rebuild of IFC. IDS, I've just put that in. So IDS got approved as a standard back in June 2024. So that is now a standard, and there's been updates to the PCERT program as well, which Holger will probably talk about later when we get to PCERT at the international level. Is there anything else to add to that, Jim, that I've missed on the international side or others?
Probably not. I could talk a bit about the tunnel work.
If you want to update that.
Yeah, only in the sense that there's been some delay to that. They completed their work some time ago, 18 months ago, and it's been taken a while for it to actually go through the BSI processes. But they're now actively finalising the candidate standard, which will be then published as on the buildingSMART website, and at that point it'll be ready to go through to ISO. So we're hoping that process starts to get some legs now. It's been stalled, but it's starting to move forward.
Thanks, Jim. And one thing that I didn't put in here as well, so I should also mention there's been quite a few new chapters now internationally. So recently we've had the Philippines and Mexico come on as chapters in formation. Also just about to be announced publicly, or I think it just has been announced publicly, that Chile has also come on as a chapter in formation. There's been a few chapters that have moved from developing chapter to full chapter, and one being Austria, so it's now full chapter. And I believe, I can't remember if it was this year, but Kazakhstan I think also came on as a chapter as well. So I think now we're at 40 chapters globally. So that continues to grow with new chapters being formed. We've been working quite closely actually with the Philippines chapter to assist them in building that chapter up locally. And I know a lot of Australian companies have offices in the Philippines, so there's a lot of collaboration there. Events. So from an events perspective, our major event that we've held for the second time, which is Exchange, was I should say quite a successful again this year. We had more attendees than we had the previous year, so over 200 attendees over the 2 days, first day being the technical day and second day being the conference. A lot of positive feedback that we received through the survey that we did, positive feedback from sponsors and speakers. And over the last 2 years, we've tried to get international speakers to come out as well. So we had Chris, who came out from Estonia to talk about the permitting system. So we've also had him present at an ABAB session as well. So yeah, very successful. For next year, we're planning to hold the event in Brisbane next year. We're just finalising the venue. That looks like it will be at QUT over in Brisbane. So you'll start to see that publicised a little bit more. We'll finalise the dates hopefully in the next week or two, and we'll start publicising. So the website's up and running for that, and we'll start taking calls for speakers and sponsors as well. And the tickets will probably go on sale early next year. On an international level, in terms of events, so we had 2 international summits this year, one in Singapore and one in Berlin. So the Berlin one that was just held recently. One thing I should mention from an awards perspective, so we had 2 Australian companies that made it to the finals of the awards. So congratulations to both John Holland for Gold Coast Light Rail, who got to the final, so they were a finalist, and TMR, who was a finalist and got a special mention. I believe they should have won, but that's just my own personal opinion. But yeah, so congratulations. I think that was a great effort to have that sort of representation at the international level. From an awards perspective, we would love to get more Australian New Zealand awards nominated next year. And if there's anyone out there who wants to nominate for an award, we can assist. So if any of our members want to put forward an award, just send us an email and we can assist you. We've got representatives in Australia who are judges. We know what the criteria is and we'll be willing to help put forward a submission for next year. buildingSMART International, I don't think they've published it yet, but every year after the awards, they publish a yearbook of all the entries. So if you ever want to see some good case studies, some good examples, that'll get published up on the website. I think early next year, it should probably go live. So you'll see a summary of all the submissions from last year. Training and PCERT. So I might hand over to Holger if you want to give a bit of an update on the PCERT program, Holger.
Yeah. So, well, quite a while now we have offered to the buildingSMART Australasian region the foundation program. buildingSMART International has now started the development of another one called infrastructure. So this is under development now. Part of the work will also be the translation to basically provide the implementation package in English for the Australian region. Once that has been done, we can then decide here for the Australian chapter if we want to make this available to our market as well. So we will start looking at the interest in this package, and if we have any training providers who are interested in deploying that, and if the feedback is positive, then we will definitely start to deploy that and make that available to the market. Date-wise, it really depends on how long buildingSMART International needs to finalize the deployment package in English, and then once that's available, we can take it over. So we'll keep you in the loop on that, but that is currently happening on the international level. Training provider-wise, we have a few new training providers that joined us this year. So we have now 4 providers in total. 2 of these are outside Australia, and in Australia we have 2 providers at the moment. That is all from my side, yes.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Holger. So yeah, always looking for more training providers. And companies themselves also, if they develop their own internal training program, can apply to be a training provider as well. They get certified to be a training provider. So that's something to consider if you want to develop your own training program as well. I think that's all we've got from the chairman's report side of things, and just as an update. So I might actually let's go through the official election of the 2020, that should be 2026 board. I've just realised, not 2025 board. So election of the 2026 board, I might hand over to Lee as the election rapporteur to provide an update on the election for the 2026 board. So Lee.
Thanks, Eric. Firstly, thanks to everyone for participating in this important process. As you know, we've got 9 board places available. We received 9 nominations, and 9 people submitted their candidate statements. As at the close, which was Thursday, the 4th of December at 5 p.m, there were no further nominations or candidate statements received. So those 9 candidates have automatically progressed to the board without the need for an election. So I'm delighted to confirm the board for 2026 will comprise the following, in no particular order: Holger de Groot, Jim Plume, John Merchant, Sandra Lang, Mark Fairbairn, Julie Jupp, Eric Bajaya, Gavin Cairns, and Aaron Traylon. Congratulations, everyone.
Thanks, Lee. And I should mention, I know I've put this slide up, in terms of chairperson, vice chair, we will have our first board meeting after this, and then we'll nominate for those positions. But yeah, I'd like to congratulate Gavin for joining board. So Gavin Cairns, who will be joining our board. And I'd also like to thank Lee Gregory, who steps down from the board. Lee's been quite a massive contributor to the board over the years. Has done a lot of work, so he's been on the board for quite a few years, but we would hope and expect that Lee will continue to contribute to our local chapter. He has been heavily involved over the years, so thanks again to Lee for his contribution to the board, and welcome to Gavin Cairns. So from an industry diversity perspective, I think it's great now to have someone representative from government as well sitting on the board. So we've got quite a broad representation from different aspects of industry, and now having Gavin representing government as well sitting on the board, I think is great. So congratulations to Gavin. I think that's all from me as in terms of the overview and the official part of the AGM. Happy to throw over to questions. So if anyone's got questions, just put them into the questions Q&A tab of the webinar. I'm not sure if we can take you off mute. I'm not sure if that's possible because we're using a webinar platform, but welcome. I'm happy to field questions. Otherwise, we'll conclude the sessions and then we'll have a board only session straight after. So any questions? Before we go to questions, actually, one thing I'd like to do is actually thank our members as well. That's one thing I haven't done. So thanks to all the members who continue to contribute to buildingSMART, I should say, over the years. So both from a financial perspective and participation perspective. So for next year, we're looking to do a little bit more than we've done last year. So additional webinars, setting up the working groups, and the new board will come together in January, like I said, to plan that out. But yeah, thanks again to our corporate members, our individual members, and even just our free members, just to, attending our events and contributing to buildingSMART over the last year. Can't see any questions. So if we don't have any questions, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we don't have any questions. We will bring the meeting to a close. And for the board members who have been nominated, there is a separate invite that will be sent out, and we'll have our first board meeting of the year. So in closing up, I'd like to wish everyone a great holiday break, Christmas, New Year, and we look forward, thanks for all your efforts over the year, and we look forward to working closely together next year. So thanks, everyone.